Out in the silent void, where broken promises can cost lives and trust is rarer than oxygen, a lone cargo pilot made one reckless joke and ended up bound to a fierce Dragonair with fire in her veins, secrets in her smile, and a claim that could ignite an ancient war. If you're new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. Jackson Reed lived by two rules: never make promises you cannot fly, and never joke with species who do not understand jokes. He had broken both rules in less than a minute, and the universe was about to make him pay in its own strange way. The refueling ring above Callisto Prime buzzed like a beehive made of metal. Docking alarms blared from every direction. Ships blinked through misted light, some shiny as new coins, others dented and held together with stubborn hope. Jackson stood at a service counter, arguing with a tired clerk about fuel rates, waving a cracked credit stick and silently counting how many more runs his old freighter could survive. He called his ship the Wayfarer's Hum, named for the quiet purr it made when the engines were happy. Lately, the engines were rarely happy. He needed cheap fuel and luck, and he had neither. Then something hit him. 1 second he was listing reasons the clerk's math was criminal. The next, he was flat on the deck, ears ringing, breath. A shadow sprawled across him, warm and scaled, smelling faintly of smoke and wind. A draconian, young, probably barely out of her hatchling years. She pushed herself up, wings folding with a sound like silk brushed over stone. Golden amber eyes blinked at him. "Apologies, Sky Traveler," she said. "I seek passage inward." Jackson stared, still trying to get air back into his lungs. "Try the passenger lifts," he said at last, pointing toward the upper docks. "They refused me," she replied simply. Her tone was calm, but her tail flicked in sharp, nervous arcs. "Why?" "They believe my kind bring misfortune." "Right," he muttered, rubbing the side of his head. "Nothing says good luck like tackling strangers." She tilted her head, not catching the sarcasm. "I am Lyra of Emberhall. I must reach Earth within 7 cycles to claim my grandmother's legacy." Jackson rolled to his feet, brushing off dust. The dock clerk had quietly vanished during the crash, probably not eager to mediate whatever this was about to become. "Good luck with that," he said, already turning away. "I can pay," Lyra said quickly. That stopped him. "How much?" 30,000 credits. Jackson spun back, half sure he had misheard. 30,000? For a ride? She reached into a side pouch and held up a credit stick glowing blue with verified funds. "Half now, half when we arrive." The number echoed in his mind. 30,000 could patch the Wayfarer's cracked panels, fix the jump coil, and maybe leave enough for real food instead of the beige protein paste he had eaten for months. He eyed her carefully. She stood with quiet pride, armored in dark metal that contrasted with the warm shimmer of her scales. She looked like a fragment of starlight that had decided to walk. He told himself not to trust strangers, especially strangers who fell from the sky. He also told himself 30,000 credits could solve many problems. The word tasting like both victory and regret. "But I'm not a passenger liner. You'll have to work. Navigation, loading, cleaning, the boring parts." Her eyes glimmered, and she smiled in a way that seemed far too happy for someone agreeing to hard labor. "I accept," she said. She followed him down the docking corridor, claws clicking on the metal floor. He could feel heat radiating from her, even at arm's length. "Where should I store my belongings?" she asked. "Cargo hold," he said. "I meant in your quarters." Jackson stopped walking. "Excuse me?" "On Draconian ships, crew share quarters with the shipmaster. It builds trust." "On my ship," he said, "people get their own space." She nodded thoughtfully, then pulled a small recorder from her pouch. She played back his words from a minute ago. "You said I am not a passenger. You said I will work. That makes me crew." He opened his mouth to argue, but her logic wrapped around his protest like a trap. He said finally, "Perfect," she said. "Dragons are communal." 2 hours later, the Wayfarer's hum shuddered free of its berth and slid into the dark. Station lights fell behind them like tired stars. Jackson told himself this was just another cargo run. Lyra curled her tail around the co-pilot seat and set the cabin heat too high. He lowered it again. They were headed for Earth, and nothing would ever be simple again. The Wayfarer's hum drifted through the quiet of deep space, its old engines humming like a tired lullaby. Inside the small ship, Jackson was already wondering what kind of chaos he had invited aboard. Lyra had claimed one corner of the cabin, as if it were her birthright. She moved with quiet confidence, tail swaying, wings folding and unfolding whenever she thought he wasn't looking. She filled the space with a strange kind of warmth that was not just about temperature. It was the warmth of someone who believed she belonged, even if no one had told her so. Jackson, however, believed in personal space the way some people believed in oxygen. Essential. "There are rules," he said, pointing at her as she perched on the co-pilot's seat sideways, her tail draped over the controls like a lazy cat. "Rules are good," she replied. "They bring order." "Rule 1, he said, "no fire inside the ship." "I am not a hatchling," she said, sounding mildly offended. "Rule 2, don't hang things from anything that keeps us alive." She paused, glancing at the shiny braid of what appeared to be metal mesh she had tied to a ceiling pipe. "Those are life support conduits," Jackson said. "If they break, we die." "They seem strong," she said, tugging one gently. It creaked ominously. "Rule 3, he continued quickly. "You sleep in the cargo hold." She tilted her head, her horns catching the soft cabin light. "That is unacceptable," she said calmly. "Crew must stay near the shipmaster for security." "Security from what?" "Pirates. Interdimensional rifts." "Interdimensional rifts aren't real," he said. "That is what the captain of the Stellar Grace said before disappearing into one." Jackson rubbed his eyes. "Fine. Then you can stay in the quarters, but you sleep on the floor." "Dragons do not sleep on floors," she said firmly. "We nest." He wanted to argue, but later that night, curiosity pulled him to see what she meant. She had transformed his tiny sleeping quarters into something between a fortress and a nest. Blankets, thermal sheets, even his spare flight suit had become part of a layered cocoon. "Are those my emergency thermal wraps?" he asked. "They retain heat excellently," she said without looking up. "They're for emergencies. This is an emergency, the emergency of insufficient nesting material." "There is only one bed," he said. "Yes, you have your bed. I have my nest. They simply occupy the same territory." "That's sharing," he muttered. "No, sharing implies This is cohabitation." He gave up. That night, he tried to sleep on his bed, while she curled up in her nest, wings wrapped around her like golden black silk. The ship was silent, except for the steady hum of the engines. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, when her voice came out of the dimness. "Why do you travel alone?" "It's easier," he said. "Easier than what?" "Than explaining myself, than getting betrayed." She was quiet for a long time. "My clan thought I asked too many questions," she said softly. "They called me difficult. I think they meant dangerous, so I left." Jackson turned his head to look at her. Her amber eyes glimmered faintly in the low light. "Does it get lonely?" he asked. "Sometimes," she said, "but loneliness is better than silence. Silence means you are not seen." Her words sank into the air like stones into deep water. He looked away. Hours later, the ship grew cold, colder than usual. The heating units struggled as they passed through the shadow of a gas giant. Jackson shivered under his thin blanket. From the nest, Lyra stirred. "You are cold," she said. "I'm fine," he lied. She rose, warm as a small star, and stood beside his bed. "Dragons share heat. It is not intimacy, it is survival," she said. "I don't." But her wings were already spreading, creating a canopy of warmth. He hesitated, then gave in. She curled around him with practiced ease, scales hot against his skin, heartbeats steady as a drum. "Better," she murmured. And it was. Jackson stared into the dim ceiling and realized something unsettling. The ship had never felt like home until now. The Wayfarer's hum glided through the dark, its battered hull steady as it cut across the void. Jackson had almost gotten used to the strange rhythm of life with Lyra aboard. She cooked things that smoked and hissed and argued with the navigation system like it was a rival. Yet somehow, the ship felt less empty now. They were only 2 days from Earth when the alarms began. Jackson woke to the piercing howl of the proximity sensors. The air filled with flashing red lights as he stumbled toward the cockpit. Lyra was already there, claws gripping the armrests, wings half unfurled. "Pirates," she said simply. Jackson's heart slammed against his ribs. A sleek black ship was on their tail, closing fast, weapons armed and glowing. "How did they find us?" "Dragons are known to attract hunters," she said calmly as she strapped into her seat. "And you didn't think to mention that?" "I assumed you knew," she said, voice steady even as the pirate ship fired a warning shot across their bow. Jackson cursed and checked the controls. The pirates had speed, weapons, and probably no sense of mercy. The Wayfarer's hum had stubbornness and worn-out engines. "We can outrun them," he said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "Or," Lyra said softly, "we can fight." Jackson gave her a sharp look. "With what? This is a cargo ship, not a warship." "You have me," she replied. Her scales shimmered faintly, golden light dancing beneath their edges like hidden fire. "Please tell me you don't mean breathing fire into space," he said. "Not fire," she said. "Something older." She rose from her seat, moving toward the cargo bay with deliberate steps. "Lyra, this is insane. Do you trust me?" she asked, pausing at the hatch. The word hung in the air between them, like a challenge. Trust. It had been creeping between them in quiet ways for days, through shared warmth, silent meals, and long nights. Jackson exhaled. "If we die, I'm haunting you." "Noted," she said. He opened the cargo bay doors from the cockpit. Decompression alarms screamed, but Lyra had already sealed the inner corridor. The pirates, seeing the open bay, slowed and moved closer. Jackson watched the monitors. Lyra stood at the center of the bay, wings outstretched, claws dug into the deck. Her scales glowed brighter, the light building until it looked like she had swallowed a sun. Then she exhaled. Not fire, not heat, something far stranger. A beam of condensed starlight tore through the darkness, crossing the void like liquid light. It struck the pirate ship's weapon array. The explosion was silent. A bloom of silver shards, scattering like fallen stars. The pirate ship spun wildly, systems flickering. Then it turned and fled into the dark, vanishing faster than it had come. Jackson sat frozen in the cockpit, hands shaking on the controls. The cargo bay doors sealed, and silence fell. When Lyra returned, her steps were slow. The golden glow had faded from her scales, leaving her pale and trembling. "You could have done that the whole time," he said. "Only when desperate," she said quietly. "It drains the fire inside. Per knees be." Jackson caught her before she hit the floor. She was burning hot, like a furnace, fighting to stay lit. "You need rest," he said. "I need heat," she murmured. "Our fire must be rekindled after the stellar breath." He helped her to the nest without arguing. For once, there were no rules, no boundaries, just urgency. She curled weakly around him, her wings folding over both of them like soft shields. Her breathing was shallow but steady. "Thank you," he said softly. "For what?" she whispered. "For saving us." "We are crew," she said simply. "Crew protect each other." Her words faded into the hum of the ship. Jackson stayed awake long after her breathing steadied. She had risked herself without hesitation, burning her own life's fire to protect his. He had thought trust was a weakness. Now he wasn't sure it wasn't the only thing keeping them both alive. Earth rose blue and green in the ship's viewport, glowing like a calm jewel against the black. Jackson stood behind the pilot's seat, watching Lyra press her claws to the glass. Her eyes were wide, full of wonder that didn't match the exhaustion still lingering in her scales. "It is beautiful," she whispered. "Wait until you see Montera," he said. "Mountains, forests, endless sky. Perfect for dragons." She smiled faintly, though the weight of her mission hung heavy between them. She wasn't here to see the world. She was here to claim what her grandmother had left behind. They landed at the eastern spaceport, where the air smelled like rain and engines. Gravity pulled heavier than station standard, and Lyra stumbled as she stepped off the ramp. "The ground resists me," she muttered. "That's just Earth," Jackson said. She likes to make a point. The draconian embassy towered at the edge of the city, a strange blend of curved stone and sharp spires. As if someone had tried to shape a mountain into a palace. Inside, the hall smelled of metal and old smoke. An elder clerk with silver scales eyed Lyra as she approached the counter. "You are of Ember Hall?" "I am," she said firmly. "I am here to claim my grandmother's territory in Montera." "Many still dispute her right to it," the clerk said. "They will challenge you," Let them, she said. The paperwork lasted hours. Lineage confirmed, blood samples taken, old laws recited. Jackson sat through it all, feeling invisible and yet somehow part of it. When they finally stepped back into the fading light, Lyra was quiet. You did it, Jackson said. Now they will come, she said softly. And I do not know how to fight. He stopped walking. What? The stellar breath was instinct, she said. Combat is ritual. I was never trained. They said I questioned too much. So you came to fight for land you can't defend? Jackson said. I had hoped no one would chow. That is the worst plan I've ever heard, he said. Yes, she agreed. It is. She paced the hotel room that night, her tail leaving faint scorch marks on the carpet. Jackson watched her circle, thinking, then said, What if you had a champion? Only family or, she stopped, eyes widening. Or what? Or recognized mates. The words hung in the air like the edge of a cliff. How does someone become that? He asked carefully. Declaration before witnesses and shared territory. He raised an eyebrow. We've been living on the same ship for a week. You even keep calling it our ship. She stared at him. You would do this? I'm not letting you lose everything because your people have old rules, he said. Before he could say more, she crossed the room and kissed him. It was warm and awkward and perfect in its own strange way. The next morning, the embassy courtyard swarmed with dragons. 17 challengers waited, all larger than Lyra, all watching Jackson like he was a bad joke. A human champion? One laughed. This is my mate, Lyra said clearly. He has shared my territory, fought pirates by my side, and earned the right to stand. Jackson stepped forward. Also, I've survived her cooking. That makes me either the toughest man alive or completely insane. Either way, you don't want to fight me. They stared. And, he added, I have recordings of her explaining dragon law, dragon culture, and how she breathes starlight. Imagine that on the open net. The dragons went very still. That is blackmail, one hissed. That is negotiation, Lyra said smoothly. After a long pause, the largest dragon rumbled. One duel, first blood. Jackson nodded. Deal. The fight lasted 3 seconds. The dragon charged. Jackson dodged and triggered an emergency flare in its face. Blinded, it froze long enough for him to slice a ceremonial scale from its chest. A single drop of golden blood hit the stone. The courtyard fell silent. Then the clerk's voice cut through. The claim is valid. They walked away hand in hand. You bluffed, Lyra said softly. Maybe, Jackson said. Maybe not. She laughed, a sound like wind over warm stone. So, my mate, she said, what now? Now, he said, we build a landing pad and a business. Dragon and human, partners. Unusual, she said. Good, he replied. For the first time, the future felt real and clear.